Hey everybody, it's Rory from A&S Gear, and today we're going to learn how to do some general maintenance on your paintball markers. Okay, so this is a KP3, so this is Azodin's pump gun. Super popular, everybody likes it. So we'll break it apart and kind of show you the insides. This is going to be very similar internally to some of the other guns that we've already looked at, the Blitz, the Chaos, things like that. Just slight variations in maybe positioning or size of parts, but in theory they all work the same exact way. So let's strip it down, get the parts off that need to be out of the way, and then we will we'll go forward from there. So let's start with this. Get it out of the way. You really don't need to take the feed neck off, but heck, why not? Comes off super easy. Get it out of the way. Let's get the pump assembly off. So to take this off, you need to remove the bolt. So pull the pin all the way up out of the bolt. Take the bolt out. There we go. And then we are going to just loosen up these front screws that hold the guide rods in place. We don't need to take them out so we don't lose them. Just a couple turns out, like so. We can take the the pump handle off the front. Be careful, there is a spring on the inside here that we don't want to lose. So if you flip it upside down and it falls out, realize that it might fall out. Most of the time they just stay in, and then we can pull those off. We're going to take our macro line out, take our regulator off, and take our frame off. Now this gun doesn't have any electronics in it, doesn't have any eyes in it, so we don't have to worry about eye wires or battery wires, anything like that, getting in the way. You can just take the whole thing apart, just like that. This flops off. The only issue we'll see with these, leak-wise, is coming from the inside core. Now typically, when the core is assembled, like it is right now, you cannot actually remove the core out, because it's going to be hard to see inside here, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. You see the core is down inside of there, but you can also see that, let me get my pick here, there's a, right up on top up here, there's a plug, or you see a piece of metal sticking out down there. That is actually from this plug right here. It is protruding into the housing of the core, and it's in the way. So this core, you can unscrew it with a flathead screwdriver. It's got slots on it, but it won't come out because that pipe fitting right there is in the way, and it won't slide all the way out. Sitting underneath that core fitting right there is just an O-ring, and when the pin slides through the O-ring this way, it seals around the thicker part of the post, and when it comes back off, it bleeds on the thinner part of the post. So if you do get a leak from your ASA down here, you would need to remove your pipe fitting so that you can get the core out, and then replace the O-ring that is sitting underneath it, which is pretty simple, but these are Loctited in place, and usually you need to heat them up to get them off, because you do run the risk of stripping it if you do not heat it up. There's no electronics in this one, like I said, or anything like that, so there's really nothing to go bad inside of the frame itself, which is a good thing. Let's go ahead and pull this out. So our velocity adjuster and housing, our spring, our striker, and that's it. On a KP3, you typically are not going to see, well, you won't see, I shouldn't say you're typically not going to see it. You won't see the striker with an O-ring on it. Obviously they can't do that because of the channeling that they've put in here to grab onto the bolt pin. And also a bumper around the spring, thought they had that one in there still, but it doesn't look like they do. They do have a bumper on the front of the valve, we'll see, which helps the gun when it cycles. A lot of people didn't like or don't like the, they call it a farting noise, as funny as that is, but it's like a double almost firing. When the hammer comes forward and strikes the valve, it bounces off the valve, and so it releases gas a couple of different times when the hammer comes forward, and it makes a funny noise, and it's distracting to some people. So they've put a bumper on it to kind of eliminate that issue, which we'll see when we pull it out. Let's take our ASA off. Now remember, underneath our ASA is a screw, not a screw, a washer, O-ring, whatever you want to call it, right there. Remember, don't lose that. You do need it when it goes back together. Otherwise, you will get a leak. If you do get a leak from right here between the two, that O-ring is your culprit. Let's put that over there. Now we're going to remove the front assembly out of here. So this acts as both the guide rod for the pump handle, as well as the retainer for the cup seal, and, well, just the cup seal and the valve spring, or valve seal, valve spring, whatever you want to call it. Now sometimes, on this one I'm lucky, you can just put your Allen key in the end of the guide here and turn it, and it will come apart. It is actually spinning both pieces right here. A lot of times what happens is this is very tight into the body, and this unscrews from this. If that happens, there's two flat spots on both sides. You can just put a wrench on the end of that and unscrew it out. Let's pull that out there. You can see our plug, valve spring, cup seal, and our valve is inside of there. That's how that works inside there. And we'll show, I'll pull the valve out and you'll kind of see how that lines up inside there. Valve plug. There. And then let's push out our valve from the back forward. Being careful not to damage it in any way. All right. Now, I've said this before, always make sure you know which direction the valve comes out so that when you go back to put it in, you put it in the right way. It's pretty obvious with this one the way it needs to go because it has this bumper that is built onto the valve here. So this, we turn this around so it looks like we had it in the gun. This is usually compressed down like that. This goes through like that. And then this comes forward and hits it right here, like that. So when it comes forward and hits it, it'll collapse this bumper a little bit and soften the impact, creating less bounce on it and less of that farting noise, so they say. If you get a leak in this gun from the front, because it's going to sit in here like this, depending on where your leak is coming from, if it's actually leaking from right here, you want to check the O-ring right here on the outside. If you get a leak that is coming from the barrel, feed neck, or back of the bolt here, you got a couple options. Could be the cup seal is not sealing properly against the valve, or the O-rings on the valve are not sealing properly. And more often than not, this O-ring, the back O-ring, is not the problem. It's the front O-ring that is not sealing, and the air that's building up inside of here needs to be held back is not being held back. It's going up and around, or over the top and up through the top, just causing all sorts of leaky issues. So feed neck, barrel, breech, and bolt issues or bolt leaks are always valve issues right there. On the other guns, we would have an O-ring on our striker that would cause weird cycling issues inside of there. But seeing as though they don't do that with this one, they use holes that are drilled into the front here. you're not going to find that issue. And that's really neither here nor there, because this gun does not need to recycle itself. It's a pump gun, so you're doing all the heavy lifting, all the hard work. So the bolt does not need to come back and recock itself. You're going to pull it back and recock it. So it does not need to move on its own. If we look at the front of this, you'll see that it is round all the way, so that it does make a seal completely inside of the valve. There isn't gas escaping out the post of the valve to hit the striker and push it back. So you should not, well, I shouldn't say you should not, you will never get a recocking issue with this particular setup, because it doesn't do it by itself. You do it. And that's it. So really, leaks in this gun, oh, actually there's one more place we could get a leak. Regulator. So let's move the reg and take it apart real quick. Same reg setup that is in the Blitz 3s or any of the other guns that have a regulator on them. If you get, let me just take it all the way apart first. Almost. I'm counting my turns so that when I put it back together, I know where it was when I took it out. All right, so here's our regulator. We've got our adjustment bottom, so the reg adjuster down here. If you get a leak out the bottom, this O-ring right there will be the problem. If you get an issue where the regulator is not functioning properly, as in it is what they call supercharging or overcharging or not charging, it's got a very slow recharge rate, you want to check this seat, this red seat right here, where the piston comes against it and it seals properly. If that's a problem where it's cracked, broken, got a hole in it, anything like that, you need to replace the adjuster. This is not a piece that is rebuildable, I don't believe. Pretty sure they put this cap on there, but this cap is not meant to be unscrewed, I don't believe. So you just need to replace this entire thing. Not a big deal, parts are cheap. And then if you get a leak from the top of the regulator, very, very top, I should say, check the O-ring that is up here on the top. It's just a normal tank O-ring. And then if you get a leak from the middle, there's a pinhole on the side right here. That leak is caused by this O-ring right here. It sits inside the regulator body like this, and the air pressure builds up above it and into the gun, into this area right here. So if this hole, wherever it is, right there, is leaking air, then this O-ring is failing and allowing air to get around it and come out this hole on the side right here. So easy to troubleshoot. If you know where your parts are and you know what they do, you can easily solve issues of leaks. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Should be roughly where we were before. All right. When we go to put this back together, which we're going to assemble the gun back to its whole being again, the swivel on here will not work if you tighten the top the reg body against the swivel itself. You can see that they're tight right now. I don't get any swivel out of it. What you have to do is slightly back the body up so that you can get the swivel to work. If you back it up a little bit like this, and you tighten this set screw down, the swivel might not work. So I have it in the right spot. I've gone far enough back where tightening that down has not caused the swivel to lock. So it's good. I want to keep it like that. You don't want to go too far, but you need to go far enough so that the swivel does go all the way around. Check it all the way around too. All right, let's put put the body back together. I'm going to start with our valve. Remember, the valve goes in the direction that it came out from the same side, so from the front. There is two different spots on here. You've got a knot hole, which is a hole with a bottom to it, and then the pass-through hole. So the air comes out of this one. The valve plug, or valve retainer screw, whatever you want to call it, goes in there, and that keeps the valve from rotating and from sliding back and forth inside the gun. So we want to make sure that that hole is facing up so that the screw can go into it, or the retainer, or the plug, whatever you want to call it. We're going to push it forward until we see it right there. There it is. We'll be able to see that thing cruise on through. There we go. Just like that. You can see that inside of there. Need to go a little bit further. Just like that. All right. When we put this in, we want to make sure that we don't over tighten it. We just want to put it in to where we feel it make contact with the valve, and then we want to stop. Don't overdo that. You can actually cause the valve to leak by over tightening it in there. Take our cup seal and our spring, put it in there, and then take our guide rod and retainer, put that in there. Make sure we do snug that up, but don't overdo it. Perfect. Let's take our vertical ASA and put that on there. Remember, we don't want to lose that O-ring. It needs to make that seal, so we're going to be very careful when we put that together so that that O-ring doesn't jump out of place and leak. If it doesn't seat properly, it will leak. If you crush it because it's fallen out of its slot, it will leak. So be careful with that. Always look around it to make sure that it is sitting flush on all sides. Then we can go ahead and put in, what do I want to do here? Let's put the frame on. We want to talk about putting the striker in. Ooh, forgot these frames. The front screw actually sits in the frame and is held there. So we want to put that in first, like that, and then attach it. You can actually leave this screw in the body. I'll show you. If you take that one all the way out like that, you can leave this one in like that and just hook the frame up to it. That way you're not taking out extra screws or losing a screw possibly. Well, or you can take it all the way out. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter either way. Just a little tip. All right, so let's finish up by putting the regulator on. We'll connect our hosing. We're just going to thread in our regulator. At this point, if we didn't set the regulator up properly and the swivel wasn't working, and let's just say we hooked it up like this and our swivel was over here and we had this set up wrong so that the swivel didn't work, you have to disassemble it again and then reposition it. But since we did it properly and our swivel is swiveling, we can take that and just line it up with the hose and connect our hose. Makes it easy. Let's do our bolt assembly first and our pump arm. The reason I'm waiting on the striker, I want to show you how the striker needs to go in and problems you can run into if you try to assemble this with the frame on. Because most people are going to take this out and do maintenance without removing the frame. So they'll need to know how to get it back together with the frame on it. So let's set up the rest of the gun and then we'll go from there. Goes like this. We'll slide that around here. We're going to take our pump arm, or pump guide at the front, make sure that our spring is inside there. We're going to push the guide rods into their respective holes on there. And then we're going to make sure we hold it forward. If I let go of this, it's possible that it will pop out. But I want to hold it forward and make sure that the screws, which are here and here, go into the slots, which are there and there. So we have to make sure that it is far enough in that those screws will line up with the slots, and then tighten them down. Once you tighten down one side, you don't really need to hold on to it. You can just flip it over. Tighten down the other. Just give it a good snug, and we're ready. Now we're going to put in our striker right now. If I put it in like this, you can see that it does not go in, which it shouldn't. The sear is sticking up into the body right now, and it is in the way. The striker cannot go over the top of the sear because it is sitting right there. Let me see if we can see that. I'm going to turn that on. You might be able to see that in there. Yeah, there it is. Right there, you can see it. So it's in the way. When you pull the trigger, the sear moves, and it'll let the hammer slide across the top of it. So, it does not go in. If I turn this over and go like this, it slides past the sear. Why? Because there's this channel cut out in the middle of it. But that's actually the wrong way to assemble your gun. When this is in there properly, the bolt pin, which sticks through like this, needs to line up with this channel right here. Because this is going to slide back in here. When you cock the gun back, you pull the bolt back, because the bolt is locked into the back block here. It slides along the channel, hits the back of the hammer, and then pulls it back. And then you bring it forward, because the pump arm goes back forward, and then the gun shoots, slides forward. So this kind of goes like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, over and over and over again. So there needs to be a slide there. If this is upside down, you can't turn it back over when it's in the gun, and then this has nothing to grab onto. So how do you get this in? You put it in by putting a little bit of pressure on the back of the striker and pulling the trigger. It will cause the sear to move out of the way, and then you can drop it down inside. Next thing we're going to do is assemble the rest of the gun. The striker actually needs to move forward one more step. Like that. So I did the same process. I pushed on it and then pulled the trigger. But what will happen is, if I put the spring in and I put the guide in and I start to rotate this to tighten it all down, the spring will actually make this thing rotate. So it'll flip upside down, and then I don't have the proper slot, which is right there, you can't really see it, to hook up with the bolt, which is going to be that slot right there. So what I don't want to do is put the spring in prematurely. I'm going to take my hammer, which I just popped out again. I'm going to install it to the first step right there. I'm going to make sure that the slot is facing up. I'm going to take my bolt. I'm going to put it in, making sure that the hole in the bottom of the bolt faces down, because we want the air to come through the valve into it. Like that. I'm going to put the bolt pin in so that it locks into the sear, or the hammer. If this is locked in properly, when I try to spin the hammer by installing this piece in the back, it shouldn't rotate anymore because it's locked into then. And that way I know it's not going to be out of position. So that can go in there. I can actually put this in the rest of the way. Put my spring in. Put my spring guide in. And call it a day. Okay. Back together, forward by itself, forward when you pull the trigger. All right, everything looks good. Let's put our feed neck back on. Should we line it up in the middle? And then our barrel. And there we go. All back together. That's the KP3. Well guys, I hope this helps you out with any questions or concerns you have about your paintball gear or products. And as always, for all your paintball needs, shop ansgear.com.